My name is Ed Thorpe, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this morning's PES Network webinar looking at opportunities of artificial intelligence, AI, within PES processes and services. I'll be guiding us through the agenda for this morning till 12:45. In a moment, I'll give an overview of how we're going to operate this morning and remind of the objectives and the agenda for today's session. But before I do that, I would like to hand the floor straight away to the representative of the European Commission, the PES Network Secretariat, Paulina Mosheva. So please, Paulina, give us some words of welcome for this morning's webinar. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ed. Good morning to you all. My name is Paulina Mosheva. I'm a policy officer at the European Commission, working at the PES Network Secretariats. And I'm pleased to welcome you all to this webinar today with very rich agenda and bringing together different perspectives on the use of AI in public employment services. I'm glad to see so many participants, maybe many are from PES, but also from other organizations. And I think it also shows the importance of the topic that we're to tackle today. A couple of words about the PES network for those of you who are less familiar. The European Network of Public Employment Services was created in 2014, and we were celebrating our 10th anniversary last year. The network brings together the PES from 27 EU member states, as well as Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway. And our aim is to strengthen cooperation between public employment services and to support PES in improving the services they deliver to their customers, to the job seekers, to employers. And I have to say that we have a pretty busy work program with over 40 activities a year. Thus, I invite you to our Knowledge Center online if you would like to find more about what we are doing. And I would like to ask colleagues from ICF to put the link to the Knowledge Center in the chat. Now coming to the topic of today, our report that was published earlier this year on opportunities of AI in PES processes and services. This report is based on selected case studies, and it aims to provide relevant and operational advice and guidance to all PES who are either in the beginning of their journey, considering using AI in their services, or the PES that are updating their AI solutions and AI strategies, and who are seeking for inspiration from their peers. It's a collective work. Our PES network members invested a lot in that. And I would like to conduce big thanks to all the contributors, and of course to the author, Dr. Willem Petersen. Furthermore, I'm very happy that the presentation of the reports will be complemented with insights and new developments and information from Estonia and France, and findings from our colleagues from OECD. As to the PES network, we will be continuing developing the topic of AI and digitalization via other activities this year as well. In particular, via working group on digitalization, the work on developing a framework of ethical standards for the use of AI in PES, and soon we will also be releasing a podcast on the use of AI in PES. So stay tuned for the next developments in the PES network. Thank you again, and I'm passing the floor to Ed for the next steps.
Thank you very much indeed, Paulina, for the words. Help already set the scene for today's webinar, but I'm going to follow up just by, as I say, presenting a bit more specifically the objectives, the agenda, and how we're going to work in terms of how you can pose questions that you might have for today's speaker. So as Paulina outlined, we have kind of three main objectives for today's webinar. There was this report that was published at the start of this year that Paulina just mentioned on the opportunities of AI within PES processes and services. And today is an opportunity for us to really highlight to you some of the key content in that report. I'm sure that hopefully some of you have had a chance to look at it, but it might be new to many of you. It's great to see nearly 200 people already in this morning's webinars, Paulina. That's a good number. It shows the high level of interest. So we want to give you a bit of an introduction into what's in that report. So hopefully maybe you can read it in full afterwards, and also present some specific PES cases, because it's always nice in these webinars to hear some inspiring practices and to learn about what public employment services are doing in concrete terms on the ground in different countries across Europe. So we're delighted that we have speakers from the PES in France and Estonia who are joining us to share some of their experiences at national level. And then this kind of looking a bit beyond the EU, the OECD have done this report, which links obviously very closely to what we've been doing within the EU, a new dawn for public employment services. So we're delighted as well that Anne Loningson has joined us to be able to present some of those findings to us a bit later. So those are the kind of the three main objectives, to get those different perspectives. And as you'll see now on the next slide, the agenda. It's quite a straightforward agenda running through those those topics. After I finished setting the scene, we're going to have a quick poll, and we'll introduce Slido so that everybody is able to connect okay, because that's also the tool that we'll be using to ask questions, but we'll put the link up on screen in a moment. But after that, we'll dive straight into this report. We're delighted that the author of the report has joined us, and I'll introduce him shortly to give us an overview of that. And then after each presentation, as you can see, we'll have an opportunity for some questions and answers. If you want to raise a question to the presenter or flag something, please, people are already using the chat on here, and that's great. Feel free to use that chat to exchange messages with each other and say hello from wherever you're joining from. But the questions and answers will all be done through Slido in a moment. But after each presenter, there'll be an opportunity to have a look at some of your burning questions and get some responses from our contributors. And then we wrap up today at 12:45. So we've got a lot of interesting content to get through, but hopefully a good amount of time. It's a bit longer than previous webinars, which have been sometimes an hour and a half. So we have a bit more time, I think, to get through and provide space for questions. So how do you ask your questions today? So the way to ask a question is through Slido, is through the Q&A. I think the link you can see now in the chat. You can go into the chat and click on that directly. If you just make your own way to Slido, you can put in the code #PES, so the hashtag symbol and PES, and you'll be able to join the Slido area for our event this morning. In a moment, I'll launch the polls, but that will also be the space, as I say, to ask questions. And please start asking questions during the presentations. Don't wait until the end, so that our moderators, and I'm delighted to say that I'm joined again by Eamon Davan, who'll be supporting me with moderating the questions for each of our contributors this morning, so we can follow up immediately. As soon as the presenters close, we can go to the Q&A. Okay, so hopefully people are able to join Slido okay through that link. So maybe let's test it out and see how many, see that we're all on board. Here's also on screen the QR code, if you find the QR code easier to use. Keep that up just for a moment while people join. And then let's go into the first question, I think, if we can. So here's a quick first question for you this morning. From wherever you've joined. What's your current stage of development in using artificial intelligence in your organization? Is it something that you're interested in but not started yet? Maybe you're piloting applications and approaches. Maybe you got new ideas in production, or you're just at the stage of developing a proof of concept. It would be interesting to hear where you are in your organizations before we go into where we think PES are across Europe. And Eamon, maybe if you want to say a couple of words to what we're seeing come through. We've had 67 responses so far.
Indeed. So interesting. I think particularly interesting that many people are interested in AI, but not yet using it. Considering AI has actually been, well, very prevalent in all kinds of discussions in the last few years. Interesting how many people are still at that flipping point of deciding whether they can, when they're ready to actually make the transition. However, the fact that nearly a quarter of PES are actually piloting applications and approaches, showing that there's lots of enthusiasm for taking advantage of all the potential benefits as well. And indeed, so very few people not yet involved in this development at all from the poll. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Eamon. Yes, it's still We're the sort of the beginnings of a revolution potentially. There's a lot of interest. It's half having not started yet. It's quite interesting. So we've had over 100 responses. Hopefully those of you who haven't responded are able to join Slido okay. If you're not, please ask in the chat for support, but the link is still available there in the chat, and you can see the QR code on the left there on the screen, and the code to use, join Slido using the code #PES. So please do join in the conversation this morning. So let's move on now to the second question to kickstart our thoughts and our conversations this morning. So what types of AI application areas are you working on related to the tasks and areas of work of public employment services? Are you using, or maybe we should, it's using or thinking about using, what are you interested in as well, maybe in terms of, is it profiling, matching, career guidance, all of the above, benefits and customer support services, or something else? Be interesting to get a flavor of where people see the potential of artificial intelligence in this sector. And again, Eamon, we'll just wait for a few more answers to come in as we have a critical mass, but starting to take shape. How do you see it, Eamon?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, the fact that kind of matching and profiling are the two most prevalent individual applications, I think fairly obvious in a way, given how fundamental matching and profiling are to the core business of public employment services. For people who've had the opportunity to read Wilhelm's excellent report, there are apparently some more kind of ethical considerations in terms of use of data for matching. So I'm kind of quite pleasantly surprised that actually matching was in the lead, because reading the report, I thought that some of those obstacles may have been a bit of a deterrent for people actually going there. The fact that so many pairs are actually using all of the above shows that people see the comprehensive, I think, across the board business benefits from adopting AI, which is very interesting.
Okay, thank you very much, Eamon. So now that's also a great introduction now to what we're here next, because we're delighted to be joined by the author of the PES Network report, Willem Peterson. If we can, move on to the next, move past the slide. Thank you very much. I'm delighted, Willem, that we're able to hand over to you on time. We have 20 minutes now to dive into this. Just before I do this, I know the question that people often ask, or just a practical question, is whether this will be recorded and made available afterwards. It will, so please be reassured. You don't have to sit scribbling notes down. You can just listen, and the recording will be available afterwards. So for 20 minutes, we're going to hand over to Willem. Willem's a long-standing PES Network expert. I saw in your bio since 2011, Willem, you've been working at European level on these kind of topics, and you're the author of the report that's at the heart of this morning's webinar. So we're delighted. We couldn't have anyone better to talk us through what's in it. And so for 20 minutes, Willem, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Very happy to be here, and thanks for inviting me. I'm going to actually, if it is possible, I'm going to share my own screen, because there's a little bit of clickies going on in the presentation, so that it's a little bit easier for me to do that. So once again, 20 minutes and a fair bit of content. So I'm going to go through the slides fairly quickly because there's a lot of information that we collected in the study, and I think there's a lot of interesting insights that we've gathered over the last year or so when we started doing the study. Why would we do a PES Network AI study? Well, obviously, and like Ed already said, I've been working with the PES Network and its predecessors for almost 15 years now. And over the years, you've seen more analytics tools, more machine learning tools, and now AI tools being used by PES. And we've done work on that in the past. So we've seen the interest in these kinds of applications increasing over time. We've also seen that a lot of PES want to learn about these things. So it sort of made sense to start doing a study to get a sort of broader picture of what PES are doing. So overall, the goal of the study is to really understand what PES are doing, what the current role of AI is, but also what the potential is of the use of artificial intelligence for public employment services. The study is very much a qualitative study. We never aimed to provide a complete picture of everything that's happening in this space across the entire PES network. That's, for example, why you will see that some of the PES that we have in this study are not included in the work that the OECD has been doing, which they will present later on, and vice versa. So the goal is not really to be quantitative or be complete. The goal is really to provide a deeper dive into the role and potential of the use of AI. And I'm going to repeat this several times so that that message really sinks in. But then we're talking about AI and what is AI? And this is interesting because this is the definition of AI that's been adopted in the EU AI Act. It's fairly comprehensive. You don't need to read all of it because the essence is basically two parts. The first is a system can autonomously do something. That's number one. It does it by itself, and it learns by itself, and it analyzes data by itself. And the second part is it then generates outputs, such as predictions and content. And that really sets AI apart from more traditional approaches in analytics, so basic statistical analysis or business intelligence. That's now what we consider the more old analytics, and AI is more advanced in those two elements. Interestingly enough, when we started doing the study, the EU still was working with a different definition of AI, which was much broader and included much more statistical analysis as part of AI. And I think that's a reflection of how quickly this field is evolving and how rapidly developments in this space are actually going. So we're going to see later on, for example, that a lot of the stuff that we considered to be AI a couple of years ago is not really top of the line AI anymore and might not even fit within this definition of the EU AI Act. Therefore, we decided to, yes, we're guided by this definition, but since we're interested in AI and what PES are doing, we also reckon that a lot of the stuff that is happening in the space is not really conforming to the EU AI Act's definition, but might be a little bit older. So we decided to look into literature and see if there's a way to classify analytics applications to make sense for people, and that sort of also showcases how the field is developing over time. So we decided to build a little model that has different generations of analytics, and ultimately that's culminating into AI. Traditional analytics, that's where it all started, so doing basic statistical analysis, and then we move into things that, like I said, a couple of years ago, we thought this was cutting edge, and this was absolutely AI a couple of years ago. Supervised machine learning, basic deep learning, recommender systems, classifiers, decision trees, that kind of stuff. And that was really cool about 10 years ago. And we now call this advanced analytics. And as we'll see later on in the presentation, a lot of the actual applications within PES fall in this bucket. Is that technically AI? No, not according to the current definition. But does it make sense to include these applications in analysis? I think so, because this what was happening in the past, and a lot of the experiences with working with these applications are relevant now. And then we move into what we then currently call AI, and we're now sort of in the space of artificial narrow intelligence, where we have unsupervised machine learning, deep learning, generative AI, so ChatGPT, all these kind of things. They're narrow intelligence because they do one thing and they do it very focusedly based on enormous amounts of data. In the future, we'll move into more artificial general intelligence, so doing multiple outputs based on multiple inputs. And then at some point in time, computers are going to take over the world and are going to be much smarter than us. But we're not there yet, and we're not going to talk about that today. The focus today is really about that straddling line between advanced analytics and AI, so AA/AI. But obviously, we're interested in the experiences of PES, so we decided to incorporate a bunch more factors in the work that we've been doing. So what impacts then the development of AA/AI within PES? Well, obviously, we need to look at the sort of broader context in which PES are working. So national organizational AI strategy. So we asked our PES to tell us a little bit more about what's happening in their organization in broader sense, but also within their country. So are there frameworks or plans or strategies that guide what they're doing? Legal and regulatory factors. So we have the AI Act as an important future counterstone, but there is also a lot of national legislation in this space already, which obviously impacts what PES are doing. Organizational and ecosystem factors. We know that things like the role of leadership, the involvement of counselors, the involvement of job seekers, but also collaboration with partners and other organizations is critical for success. So what does that look like? Then obviously, and that's a hot topic nowadays, responsible and ethical AI considerations. So how are we dealing with the ethics of it all, and how are we balancing, being cutting edge while also being responsible in the things that we do? And lastly, we asked our participants about the sort of financial and resources consideration. So are you using this to save money, or do you see this as an investment to improve your services? And do you have the budgets to do this? And what are the other resource considerations that you have, such as, are you developing this in-house, or are you outsourcing this because one of the two might be cheaper and more efficient for the organization? So we really took a deeper dive into a lot of factors that could be relevant for PES when they start on this journey. The general approach, and this is that first repetition, is not on analyzing everything and showcasing everything that every single PES is doing, but it's really a qualitative overview of certain PES that are really broad in their experiences, because we wanted those PES that are really far along, some of the leaders in the space that have 5 or 6 or 7 applications up and running and really professional business organizations around it, but also the ones that are just getting started, because we wanted to understand what their thought process is, where they draw their inspiration from, and what kind of considerations they have when they do this. So understanding value and understanding impact was much more important for us than the complete picture, and hence the approach of the study. We did some desk research to sort of understand AI and create all these models and frameworks that I just shown, but also to get some insights in which PES are doing what. And then subsequently, we invited some PES to have a 90-minute interview to talk about their experiences. So it was much less a technical analysis, but much more a sort of reflection upon the journey. But we did ask the PES to supplement that qualitative interview with the information that they had available about their application. So architectural drawings and the like, to show us the background and the technical stuff behind their tools. These are the participants. So ultimately, we had 11 PES across the network participate from, like I said, a broad range of experiences. And overall, those PES mentioned 40 different, we call them practices, but you can consider them tools or applications that they consider to be AI, because we asked them to describe the tools that they considered AI. But some of those tools are really just statistical analysis or are really more business intelligence. So we decided to not include all of those in the analysis because they were simply not advanced enough. But they mentioned about 40, and we included about 34 applications in our study. And before I dive into the sort of more qualitative insights that we gathered, it would be interesting to see what those 34 applications look like if you plot them in different areas, to just get a feel of what the field looks like. One way to do that is to look at where are they in their process. So we see that there's a fair bit of ideation and creation going on. So we're thinking about our application. We're not building it yet, but we are designing it, and we're talking to the different stakeholders. So some countries are really in that stage. We see that there's a fair bit of proof of concepting, so POCing or doing pilots going on, but the majority of the tools that we looked at are actually in production, which is very interesting and obviously good news, because apparently there are a lot of PES that already have this stuff running in production, and some of them have been doing this for several years. So the majority of the tools are in production. And interestingly, we're also seeing some fairly advanced applications already being canceled or disbanded. And in this case, this is the tool JobNet by VDAB. So that's the PES from Flanders in Belgium. They built a neural network-based matching tool, but it was such a black box to them that they couldn't really understand the process and reasoning behind the model and understand the output. So they decided to take a different route. So we're also seeing some of those discussions around, what should we be doing with the black box nature of AI? And I'll get to that in a little bit. But the majority of tools is in production. Another lens is to look at sort of the primary processes of PES, and we already had the Slido question about this. So are they doing profiling, matching, or career guidance, or some other type of application, such as creation of labor market information, doing fraud detection, customer service, or supporting counselors in other ways than the primary process? unsurprisingly, and that's sort of also in line with the Slido question that we had, the majority of PES applications are in that primary process. So we see that there's a lot of interest in profiling. And I think it makes a lot of sense because in my view, profiling is almost the gateway drug into AI for PES because it's the start of the customer journey. It's typically a fairly straightforward process where you collect some data about a job seeker and then you put the job seeker in certain buckets to help them along their future journey. So these applications tend to be relatively easy to develop and tend to be not that complicated from a sort of technical standpoint. So we see a fair bit of profiling. Then matching a lot less, because matching, while of interest, is a lot more complicated to do. There's a lot more considerations around the data that you're combining and that you're using to match these things. But also from a technical standpoint, it's simply more complicated. And then we see that there's a lot of stuff in career guidance, but this tend to be a lot of applications from a very few number of PES. Again, Flanders, VDAB, they have a lot of career guidance tools that help job seekers orient themselves on the labor market or simulate what happens to their job prospects if they acquire different skills or competencies and how that would affect what they're doing in the future. So career guidance, while there is a lot of tools in this space already, it tends to be a limited number of PES that are having a lot of these tools. So in my view, profiling is number one, matching number two, and then career guidance with that. But obviously, we see other application areas. So growth predictor tools in the Netherlands, focusing on LMI, fraud detection in Sweden. So there's a wide range of tools that are being used in different areas. But the focus is, as said, on PES core processes. Lastly, then, how advanced are these tools, and are they really truly AI in the current sense? Well, yes and no. We see that a lot of the tools are straddling the line between traditional analytics and what we then call advanced analytics. So are they machine learning based, supervised machine learning based, more or less? And we see that the bulk of the applications that we analyze are really doing that. So they are decision trees, they are simulation tools, they are machine learning tools that are not cutting edge anymore to today's definitions. But once again, if we rewind the clock 12 months or 15 months, they would absolutely be advanced AI tools. But is there true innovation going on? Absolutely, there is. We see generative AI tools. We see large language models based on foundation models being used in production. The Berufsinformat in Austria, which is very interesting, is the first sort of chat GPT application that we saw in this space. And countries like France, the Netherlands, and Sweden are doing a lot of stuff that is really considered cutting edge to today's standards. But the bulk is more advanced analytics than it is AI. Then the sort of overall observations, and I'm doing good on time, so that's good. What we're seeing, talking to these people and then gathering those experiences, we see obviously that AI use is emergent and it's maturing rapidly, because what we're seeing is that a lot of those PES were not doing anything about 2 years ago, and now they have stuff in production. And moving along that line, if you have dedication and if you have a good process, is going fairly quickly. We're also seeing that the leaders in this space that have one application in production quickly move to 3 or 4 or 5. And that's why you see that 10 years ago we looked into the use of data within PES, and we didn't see that much at all. But now we have 34 fairly advanced analytics applications in production. So the field is really maturing rapidly. And there's obviously a lot of interest around the newer stuff, such as generative AI and chat applications and large language models and the like. What we're also seeing is that even though there is a fair number of applications in production, the focus of PES is not really on getting actual production value yet. The focus of most of the PES that we talk to is really on learning, because even though they might have something in production, it's still fairly novel. A lot of these applications are new and still being developed. So the focus is on learning and not yet on the actual outcomes of PES. And while I think that makes sense, might not be a bad idea to focus a little bit more on business value. Get to that in just a second. We're also seeing that even though there is not that focus yet on hard outcomes and hard metrics and business value, the experiences so far have been extremely positive. So even though there is, challenges around AI, around ethics and responsible AI and the legal stuff, the experiences so far have been very positive, but those positive results have been mostly based on soft indicators. And by that, we mean that it typically is positive feedback from counselors or positive impressions from the people that work with it, or some, you've done 1 or 2 focus groups with some job seekers and they are excited about this. We have very little hard data that says that a AI matching tool performs X better than another tool. Some of those comparisons have been done. Estonia have been doing comparisons between different types of analytical models, and they might touch upon that later on. But most of the overall positive results are based on soft data. Nevertheless, it's a positive result. We're also seeing that, like I said, profiling is sort of that gateway application, gateway drug into the use of AI within PES, with career guidance and then matching following closely, which I think, again, makes a lot of sense. So if you want to get started in this space, or if you're one of those PES that hasn't done anything, profiling is probably the way where you want to get started, because it's the beginning of the journey and it tends to be relatively straightforward. But what I found really interesting, also looking at the sort of way that we looked at the different applications, is that the current focus of PES really is on individual standalone applications. You do a profiling tool, and then you do a matching tool, and then you do a career guidance tool. There are very few PES that are trying to connect all these tools into an integrated workflow. And we've seen some PES where they said, oh boy, we've built a profiling tool and it uses certain data points, but then we have a career guidance tool that uses other data points. So they don't really integrate. And sometimes they might even get different results if you're looking for similar things. And that might create problems later on in your more ambitious journey into AI. So the current focus is really on individual standalone applications, which makes sense given where PES are. But in my recommendations, I think we should focus probably a little bit more on the whole workflow. Moving on quickly, we also see that AI is seen as a supplement, not a replacement of staff. And typically, when it is a supplement, it is used by staff to do something. So staff uses an AI tool to do profiling and then do recommendations. Reasons for that are twofold. First is, we're also seeing that AI applications tend to not be perfect. So you want to have that last line of defense of your staff, your counselors, caseworkers, doing the final review before presenting data to a job seeker. The second reason is that there's a lot of caution around putting AI stuff in production and customer facing because of sometimes negative news stories about AI, the legal aspect of AI. So what happens if we put this customer facing? So PES are cautious about how to deploy this, and therefore they see it as a supplement and not as a replacement of their staff processes. So I think there's some value in thinking about how we can use this to enrich the work of our staff and make their work more meaningful, rather directly in the short term as being a replacement and cutting jobs in our PES. We're also seeing that while AI development typically happens in the more technical domains, the stakeholder involvement is absolutely critical for success, which makes the success of AI much more soft and a lot less technical than people often assume. Having leadership support, having counselor involvement, and talking to job seekers is absolutely critical if you want to make this successful. Secondly, next, the sort of balance between the black box nature and explainability is a really important consideration that not many PES are doing. So more advanced AI applications tend to be more complicated, and therefore you cannot really explain what they do. At the same time, there's always the desire to be explainable, because what if your job seeker asks where the recommendation comes from? How can you then explain that? And PES are dealing with this in different ways. Some PES are trying to make it explainable. Other PES are taking a step back and saying, we'd rather have a little bit less of a sophisticated model as long as we can explain what's going on. So that's a consideration for PES. How advanced and explainable do you want to be? Another really important finding is that we find that exploring AI is really, really, really easy. You can whip up an AI application in a matter of hours if you have a talented developer. But moving this into production and keeping it in production is really, really, really hard. because you need all that stakeholder involvement. You need to have a lot of commitment. You need to connect to a lot of systems in the organization. So from a technical viewpoint, but also from an organizational viewpoint, moving into production is hard. So we've seen those PES that are really swayed by demos from vendors, and they really get a POC up and running real quickly, and they get super excited, but then the hurdles happen because production is really, really hard. Lastly, having mentioned all these challenges, the future is looking really bright because the results are there, not hard, but soft. Developments are going really, really, really fast, and the potential is really being seen as absolutely great by PES. So I think we're going to do a lot of work in the PES network in a couple of years, but we're a very sort of positive outlook towards the potential of AI. And then real quick in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, Willem, just before you present your conclusions, just to remind people, I see that in the chat, feel free to make comments or ask questions of each other in the chat. I saw there was a question from Boris, which maybe participants want to answer to in the chat. If people from any PES want to flag an example of theirs, please feel free to do so. Questions directed at Willem should go in Slido. I see there's already now quite a few questions. Please, if you see a question that someone has asked that you would like to hear Willem answer, please upvote it. You can like it so we can see which are the more popular questions. It will enable us to choose, because we just have about 10 minutes to do the question and answer, so we might not be able to get through all of them. So please flag questions that you also want to hear Willem's answer to. So sorry, just to say that before now, please, Willem, just your conclusions and recommendations before we go into the Q&A. Thank you.
Excellent. That was a good intervention for me to have a sip of tea. So thank you for that. So then last slide. What should PES then do? What's the advice that we give to PES beginning or become maturing in their journey? First of all, there is something to be said about the development of clear business cases. PES jump into this journey because they are excited. Sometimes because they have internal teams that want to do this, or they have vendors that approach them and want to demo something, and they get excited to do it, but they don't have a clear business case. And it might make sense to do this because it will help you later on, if you want to move from POC or pilot into production, to have tangible outcomes. So thinking about your goals, thinking about your needs, defining those key performance indicators to demonstrate business value might help you later on in your journey. So I think that's recommendation number one. Recommendation number two is that indeed we're seeing all these sort of standalone applications developed by different teams or supplied by different vendors. But once you get more advanced, you might want to start thinking about your entire workflow. What if you profile something and then you recommend them a training, and based on their training, their profile updates and their matching results will become different? So these kind of workflows might make sense from a customer journey kind of perspective, but that's not going to happen that way if you develop only siloed applications that don't integrate. So thinking about what you want to achieve and what your customer journeys look like might help you develop AI tools that ultimately yield much more aggregated value than those standalone applications. So avoid siloed applications, at least in terms of thinking about how they would integrate and interact with other applications. So simple stuff such as, does my application have APIs that we can use to open up results and inputs to other applications? I've seen so many situations where these things are not integrated or not included in calls for proposals or tender specs, but you want to do these things. So that's recommendation number two. Recommendation number three is really the encouragement of knowledge sharing. And yes, we're in the PES network right now, and we're sharing knowledge right now. So this might sound redundant, but we can do a better job at sharing the actual details of our applications and our tools, because we're seeing 10 or so profiling applications, and they all more or less do the same, but they're all different. And from a sort of PES network perspective, that might not make the most sense because there's no need for those 10 or 15 different applications to exist, especially not when we're reinventing the wheel. So using the PES network to facilitate the sharing of experience and tools could be brought to a higher level, but also PES amongst themselves. So hopefully this report will help you also find applications, because we've created a lot of examples in a report and case studies and best practices of what is happening in the PES network. So hopefully you'll read the report, and hopefully you'll find other paths that can help you do this. Fourthly, yes, the focus really is on learning and on getting value and on doing pilots and POCs, but it is not a bad idea to start shifting the focus from experimentation to production, because that's where the real challenges are. Like I said before, it's really easy to get up a pilot and do something online and get an LLM going, but getting it into production is really, really, really hard. So thinking about this when you design your pilot might help you later on. Which stakeholders do you need to get on board? Are there certain legal challenges that you need to look into? Is there an ethics board in the organization, or should you create one? Is there a code for responsible AI in your country or in your PES? These are all things you can now do to get much better control later on. And lastly, and then I'll stop talking, consider factors beyond the technical. So we call that considering holistic factors. It's not just about the data and the data model and the AI application. No, it's about legal, organizational, ethical, financial factors, and building all of these factors into the things that you're doing. So think a little bit beyond your AI application and start talking to HR and start talking to a legal department to see what needs to be done to make this an ultimate success. And that's it for now. If you have further questions, just, for now, put them in Slido, but my email address is here too, so you can always reach out, and also the ICF people and the commission themselves have been very fantastic at facilitating the dialogue on this topic. Looking forward to the questions and the continued discussion.
Thank you very much, Willem. Yeah, thank you very much indeed. We just have 5 minutes, I think, now, just for some quick Q&As. I see, Eamon, that there's quite a bit of interest in 2 questions in particular. Can I pass you the floor to lead us through a bit of a discussion with Willem? Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. One sort of 30-second observation, Wilhelm. I'm thinking your point on profiling was extremely apposite, and a common approach to profiling would certainly support kind of the operation of a European labour market. But can you tell us a bit more about the main challenges with data privacy, Wilhelm? A massive question, but maybe 2 or 3 key issues in relation to that, possibly.
So obviously there's GDPR, and I don't have to explain to anyone in the audience what GDPR is. However, so data privacy is very important, and everybody cares about data privacy. But what I'm finding is twofold. The first is that the automatic assumption is that you can't do anything because of GDPR. That's not true. You can do a lot more than you think you can, especially when you mask data and when you anonymize data. And in that realm, there's probably a lot more that we can do that we think we can do. The second is, because there's such a bias towards assuming that we can't do things, that people don't take the time to study what they can do. So it might make sense for a lot of people to get advice from their legal experts in their past to figure out what the actual boundaries are, because there's a large gray area also within GDPR, and there's probably a lot more than we can do that we're now aware of. But having said that, there's a lot of stuff that PES can do that has nothing to do with personal data. If we take general data about a job seeker, it should stay away from being privacy sensitive. So it should be a very important consideration, but it should not be the main blocker to do nothing.
Okay. Thank you. Just try and get one other question, actually. I think something I noticed as well, reading your really excellent report, a surprising, possibly lack of developments in regard to employers. Of course, who are important, the most important customers in a sense for public employment services. I wondered if this was because of some kind of ethical, commercial sensitivity issues, but have you got any views about why there's almost, well, very little focus on the employer aspect in public employment services AI development?
My main explanation would be that the bulk of the AI applications is being developed by private companies, and those private companies see the public job boards and public matching tools, the LinkedIns of this world. They're much more visible than what happens on the employer side. So it's a lot more visible, and it's probably a lot more sexy to develop job seeker facing tools than it is to develop employer facing tools. But I 100% agree with you that that's probably where there's a lot to be gained and where there's a lot to be value to be created. But it's a lot less sexy, and it's a lot less marketable.
Okay, have we got time for one very quick question, Ed, or do we need to move on? What do you think?
I think I'd like to move on, if that's all right.
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
It's 11:45, just to keep us on time.
Yep.
I want to thank Willem very much indeed for presenting the report. There's so much interesting material in it, and I do encourage everybody to go and read the report in full. But it was great to have that presentation of kind of the main messages. You can see what the main trends are across Europe. And it was good to see. I was noticing that one of the recommendations was to keep using the PES network to facilitate exchange of examples and practices. Excuse me. And that takes us to now what we want to hear, because we're delighted that we're now going to hear from two different PES. First, we're going to have a representative of the PES in Estonia shortly. But before that, our first representative is from the PES in France, from France Travail. I'm delighted that Mathilde Caderet can join us to give us an overview of how in France they've been integrating artificial intelligence into the core services of the public employment service. And I saw France was often mentioned in many of those charts that Willem presented. So it'd be great to hear in a bit more practical detail, Mathilde, what you've been doing and your experiences so far. So please, for the next 10 minutes, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone. Very happy to be here too. So as we have 10 minutes, I'll try to be concise. So AI at France Travail is not new. Actually, it's already a long story for about 10 years. So to give you some context, we launched a program in 2018 to install AI at France Travail using statistical AI. We've successfully implemented an AI platform that allows us to industrialize AI services at scale and deploy around 15 AI services in production, such as incoming emails classification, automated CV analysis, and legality checks of job offers. So at the end of 2022, we also saw the emergence of ChatGPT and thus the power of generative AI. So at the beginning of 2024, as part of a more global transformation of our PES, we launched a cross-departmental program focusing on AI and data. So we can move on the next slide, please. Thank you. So to build this program, we went into the field, into the agencies. The highly important thing for us is to work for, by, and with the advisors on the use cases. So they told us that they didn't have enough time to support those who needed it the most, that there were too many tools, and that connecting people with a CV and an offer was sometimes limited. So those discussions allowed us to identify the three main ambitions of the program. The first one is about free up time for their advisors, so support them in daily administrative tasks to focus on user relationships. The second one is to better understand users with more and better quality data to provide personalized service. And the last one is about providing a new user experience, more simple and more inclusive, which GenAI allows us to achieve. So to meet these challenges, we organized the program in two parts: daily AI around ChatFT and its FTs. ChatFT is our secure internal, and ChatGPT, which I'll present in a few slides. And we have game-changing AI that aims to deliver innovating sourcing and improved matching. So we also have a product in testing called MatchFT, which I will also present. And in parallel with this, we have some work streams that support the program. The first one is related to the AI ethics charter. So this charter applies to all solutions, and we ensure that the 7 commitments for trusty AI are respected. So we have purpose and legitimacy, human-centric, fairness and no discrimination, freedom of choice, transparency, security, and environmental impacts. An external ethics committee also exists, composed of representatives from businesses, employees, philosophers, sociologists, algorithm experts, and so on. And this committee is consulted every 3 months on use cases that wish to be deployed to challenge and alert if necessary. And of course, this charter will be adapted to the requirements of the AI Act And we ask for that European support to help us to operationalize the AI Act. About change management support for France Travail agents, we have e-learning available to have an AI sensibilization and to learn how to prompt. We also have AI ambassadors and key users, and I think it's the most important. They are involved at the beginning of the solutions development that help to have an efficient deployment of our solutions. And for job seekers, for example, we propose an AI calendar, allowing an introduction to AI in 30 days, available on our website. And to finish, we have set up an AI use case governance. So a committee is in place for tracking use cases. So the product teams have to explain their AI use case, purpose, benefits, and so on. And then the AI program members can provide an overall vision, ensure global coherence, and offer expertise. We can move on to the next slide, please. So regarding the strategy for 2025, our goals are continue deploying impactful AI solutions. So we'll expand the implementation of AI-driven tools such as ChatFT, FTs, and MatchFTs, focusing on delivering measurable outcomes. Better support the product teams to have AI expertise and autonomy in AI development. So we'll provide resources like an AI agents creation studio. The objective is that the product teams can independently design, develop, and deploy AI simple solutions. Support France Travail agents in leveraging AI solutions. So we'll ensure that they are equipped with the knowledge and training necessary to effectively integrate AI tools into their daily workflows. And of course, integrate AI Act compliance into our AI engineering lifecycle. By 3 years, we want to implement a new user experience through conversational interfaces. So our goal is to design and deploy a conversational interface that transforms the way users interact with our systems by hiding the complexity of traditional application. We want to develop a self-service AI and data platform for product teams. This platform will provide all the necessary tools and resources for teams to develop, test, and deploy AI-driven solutions. And finally, establish an open and optimized data architecture for AI integration. And by 5 years, we aim to have a fully data and AI organization. We can move on to the next slide. Thank you. So our first main use case is ChatFT. It's our internal and secure ChatGPT, as I said before. It comes with its extensions that we call FTs, like GPTs, which are conversational agents created for a specific need. So, for example, we have Neo. It's currently being testing. It's connected to the job seekers' data to help answer questions about the job seekers' file concerning their skills, desired profession, or diagnosis. So the advisors can save 5 to 10 minutes in the preparation of an interview. So we built ChatFT because we realized that many agents were using ChatGPT in their daily professional lives, which shows that there was a need. It was our duty to offer an internal and secure solution to avoid data leaks and offer a tool that helps free up time. Regarding impact and gain, we now have 30,000 users of 55,000 agents, so more than 50% product adoption, with a satisfaction rate of 4 out of 5. And the last word on the technologies used, we used the GPT-4o model for ChatFT, and we are testing the large model of Mistral. And for FTs, we use GPT-4o mini and also the small models of Mistral. Next slide, please. So just to show you what the ChatFT interface looks like. So on the top right, you can see that each agent is personally authenticated. On the left, we have the FTs and also a prompt library that allows users to obtain ready-to-use prompts for the needs or to contribute if the prompt does not exist yet. And in the middle of the page, you have some proposition of use, such as writing an email, summarizing a text, or asking for ideas to prepare a workshop, for example. Next slide. The second use case, it's MatchFT. So the objective of MatchFT is to have a more efficient sourcing method thanks to an AI-guided conversation by SMS with the candidate. So the project is being tested with 600 advisors. So how it works. After having a match between a job offer and a candidate, the advisors select the most appropriate candidates and the criteria they want to discuss with them, and then they can launch the AI-guided conversation by SMS. And an important thing that after the pre-qualification, the advisor keeps the matching part, so there is no automation. This solution will ensure three main benefits. So we save time to our agents because they can launch 50 pre-qualification at the same time. And also it's sometimes complicated to reach job seekers by phone or emails, and SMS seems to appear a good way to reach the job seekers. Also, the selected candidates fits better to the company, then the satisfaction is increased, and we can answer to a main objective for France Travail, help companies to recruit more quickly and having more personalized matching. We also accelerate the return of work of our job seekers by providing a simple service. And another big benefit is that we also capture fresh data, like availability or job research criteria of our job seekers. So those information can be reused for a better matching in the future. And to do that, we're in partnership with a startup, and our goal is to deploy at a large scale the product with Mistral. Next slide. Thank you. So this is the interface of the advisor tool. So on the left, they can choose the candidates from whom they want to launch a pre-qualification. At the top right, you can see the criteria that can be checked. So we have interest, availability, mobility, hours, salary, experience, and missions. And at the bottom right, you can see the questions that will be posed by the generative AI. And of course, the advisor has access to the history of the conversation with the job seeker. So MatchFT is really integrated in the advisor's tool. And I think I'm done in 10 minutes.
Thank you very much indeed, Mathilde. Very interesting overview of what you've been doing in France. We just have a few minutes, just kind of 5 max, I think, just for any questions. Please do. I cleaned out the questions that were directed at Willem. I see there's some conversations going on in the chat here. Please feel free to carry on those conversations. But questions for Mathilde, please pose them on Slido. Otherwise, Eamon, for 5 minutes, can you just run through a conversation with Mathilde? Thank you.
Indeed. I mean, first of all, I was very struck by your strategy, Mathilde, looking at 5 years ahead. I think that is very long term in the world of AI. Rolling back where we were 5 years ago, it'll be fascinating to see where we might be in 5 years' time. But overall, you've obviously had a lot of success in France Travail in moving on this agenda. Could you perhaps summarise what you think are the 2 or 3 key factors that a PES must consider if they're looking to successfully innovate the way that you have in your organisation? So what are the 2 or 3 key lessons you might wish to share with colleagues?
I would say involve users at every stage, actually. Truly put people at the center and work with them. I think also, like, don't neglect social dialogue. We have a very strong one in France Travail, and the unions meet monthly to present the progress. So they are really involved in the strategy. I think one of the key success too is about adopting a product-based organization. So no difference between business lines, IT teams, and the field. We really work together, and it simplifies a lot of things. And I think build a sovereign infrastructure due to the sensitivity of the data and avoid dependency.
Yeah, I mean, ChatFT seems to be very well designed from that perspective, actually. We've got a question here, Mathilde, concerning the financing of the SMS app. The startup who developed the pilot, how will they actually, do you know how they were actually funded for that work? How that was actually done? Or did they provide it free of charge with a view to perhaps looking at future opportunities?
No, it's not free of charge, of course.
Yeah.
I don't have
I'm not surprised.
I don't have the exact price of this actually.
Okay.
But it's not
That's
free.
not a
It's
problem.
really not free.
Thank you. Perhaps we can pursue that afterwards. Concerning the use of ChatFT, I think one particularly interesting question is how have you actually encouraged more use of this particularly? Is there anything you've done to make sure that it's been very kind of warmly embraced and welcomed by potential users?
Actually, it's a funny story. We started building ChatFT with about like 15 users. So it was really a small group. Then the numbers grew and the connection link was passed on between colleagues. And we intentionally leaked the connection as everyone adopted their own uses. And once ChatFT was officially deployed, we built a Teams community that now has over 5,000 users. And at the very beginning, it was the product team that answered users' question. And now users respond to each other and even report some use cases that we hadn't thought of. So it's really impressive. And an important part too, it's we go into the field every weeks and we share and demystify AI because many people are really reluctant due to the fear of AI and maybe they can replace them. But when we sit down with them, they talk to us about their daily tasks, and we show them concretely by doing things with them how ChatFT can help them. And actually, they often feel very satisfied about that, actually.
Thank you. One very interesting question at the top of our list at the moment, actually. With the SMS, people can say they're actually not interested in applying for vacancies. I think what's behind this question is, could there be implications for people in terms of looking at their availability for seeking work if they start to report they're not interested in looking for vacancies? Could they be leading towards potential questions about whether they should be receiving unemployment insurance payments? Very interesting question.
Actually, of course, the job seekers can say that they're not interested. If they just write stop, we just cut the conversation, and there is no impact on their pension. I don't know how to say, but there is really no impact and no impact at all. Like it's just a new way, a new user experience to propose some job offers. Actually,
thank you. So particularly kind of enthusiastic use of SMS might not be opening a door to somebody at more risk of being sanctioned. Thank you. Euro is very interesting. Have you thought about the potential usage of some of your developments for kind of supporting the EURES network, which would seem to be quite an interesting dimension? Has anything been explored in that area so far?
I'm not sure yet, but I'll take the question and I can go back to you as soon as possible. But I'm not sure with the EURES.
Thank you very much, Michelle, and thanks, Eamon. The comment there at the top of the screen, I think we can also just leave as a comment for the moment, because we need to move on to our next presenter. But it's very important to consider when using AI the implications for people with different types of need, maybe lower qualifications, etc. So that perhaps the need for guidance on how to make sure it's adaptable and takes account of people with different accessibility needs is an important reflection. So thank you for that. And thanks again, Mathilde and Eamon, for presenting that example of what's been happening in France. And now I'm delighted to pass the floor to another PES example, a representative from the Estonian PES, Tiin Karavi. I'm delighted, Tiin, that you've joined us. And for 10 minutes, you're going to present to us what you've been doing with a profiling tool, OTT, and also a kind of a identifying matching skills, a tool called Oswald. So we look forward to hearing about these again, these really practical experiences which help us understand more in depth what's going on the ground. So Trine, for 10 minutes, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So yes, today I will talk very briefly about two tools. One of them is already implemented and the other one is in development phase. And firstly, our decision support tool, which is built for our counselors, and it's called OIT. We like to call our tools with male or female names, so this is the one. Why we developed it? We have our counselors have constant inflow of new job seekers every day, and some of the job seekers will find work very quickly by themselves, and others will need more help from our counselor side. And our counselors need time to analyze all the data about each job seeker. And we have a lot of data. We can retrieve data from public registers in Estonia. We insert the data by our counselors or by a client. So there is a lot of data that needs to be analyzed. So this decision support tool is built to help them to make decisions more quickly and to get a very fast overview. What is the situation of this customer? Next slide, please. So this decision support tool is a machine learning model. We retrain it every 3 months, and for training we use 5 years data about unemployed. We use data about the background of unemployed people, their employment, unemployment situation, what kind of benefits they receive, the risk factors, some of the skills they have, and also some data about the labor market. And the trained model then, when a new person registers as unemployed, on the 35th day, each unemployed will receive assessment. And the model gives 3 outputs. The first output is the probability of moving into employment within 6 months. Secondly, the probability of returning into unemployment within 1 year if the person went to the work in between. And also it indicates top 10 factors that affect these probabilities the most. Next slide. We have integrated this model in our everyday workflow and also our ITA system. So when our counselor checks the customer's profile, they can see the assessment results for each customer. But we have also created dashboards where the counselors can get very quick overview of their whole portfolio. So each rectangle represents one client in this counselor's portfolio, and they can see what is the distribution by the risk levels of this counselor's clients, and they can also click on the specific person to see the results, what kind of assessment they have, and what are the probabilities. And the top 10 factors that affect this probabilities either positively or negatively. And we have created a similar dashboard also the chief counselors, so they can see their teams, clients, and maybe reallocate clients between counselors if needed. Next slide, please. So what are the benefits for the counselors using this tool is that it helps them to make quicker decisions. For example, what kind of support channel to use. We have different options, online, phone, or face-to-face counseling. They can decide how often they would like to see the client. Usually it's once in 30 days, but they can do it more often if they see that the client needs more help. This decision support tool also shows what are the most important factors that affect this specific client's job seeking journey. And based on that, they can decide what kind of interventions, like what kind of services they would like to offer for the client. And the dashboard helps them to have a very good overview of their whole portfolio and the risk level. And that also helps them to plan their schedules and workload better. But what is the most important thing to mention, that this is only supporting tool, and no decision is done solely based on this model output, because we have a lot of data that our model uses, but we don't have all the data. For example, health data is missing, and this influences heavily the probability of moving into employment. So the final say is with the counselor. They decide what to do with this customer. And for next developments, what we would like to do, or what we are actually doing already, we are trying to make it more dynamic. Right now, it gives only one assessment during this unemployment spell, but we would like to make it in intervals. Maybe we haven't decided the intervals yet, but we want to make it more dynamic, so the assessment changes based on what has been done with the client during the unemployment time. Okay, so next slide, please. So this was briefly about our decision support tool, and now coming to this tool that we are currently only developing. It's a skill-based matching tool called Oswald. Next slide. Why we want to do it? Firstly, our current matching uses ISCO code to match job seeker and job vacancy, and this code is inserted manually in our IT system, and you can make mistakes. So sometimes our clients or employers are not very happy with the quality of the matching, because some ISCO code maybe wasn't inserted very correctly there. And our counselors continuously work on correcting these ISCO codes. This current matching uses only a very limited number of skills, for example, language and computer skills. And what's important to mention, that currently our IT system doesn't have any skills classificator integrated in them, which is actually the basis of skills-based matching. And maybe fourthly, we have received also recommendation from our bench learning assessments that our matching could be more skills-based than how it is right now. So what we are now trying to do is that we would like to detect skills from the CVs and job vacancies free text fields and make matching based on that. Next slide. And the first problem that we encounter is that you can describe one skill in different words, different expressions, synonyms, and so on. So how to solve this problem is that we turned to ChatGPT and asked it to generate the number of keyword sets associated with each ESCO skill. So, for example, when ESCO skill is welding, ChatGPT proposed some other words also associated with the skills, like welder, metalworking, and so on. So we have created a keyword skills dictionary based on this request. Next slide. And the second problem is that the text that we write when we write our CV or job vacancies is quite fuzzy to understand the computer. So for that, we need to use natural language processing and lemmatizing to transform the words into a root form. So we can then create the skill cloud for each CV and job posting. So for example, word assembling becomes assembly and structures become structure and so on. But yeah, it's more easier to do it in English. Estonian language is much more complicated, but unfortunately, this system, natural language processing, helps. And the next slide. And the next step is then to calculate the match score, which is based on the share of skills matched relative to both person and a job. And we also take into account the weight or importance of skills. We have given more weight for more specific skills, and the more general skills have a little bit less weight. And then we calculate the weighted fit for person to a job and vice versa. And the mean of the two scores will be the match score of this match. And that way we can then present for example, for a client that based on the skills we detected from your CV, these could be the best matches for the job vacancies that we have in our system. And as I was saying, this tool is right now under development. We have a prototype that is made by our cooperation partner from Tartu University. They're scientists. And what we are planning to do this year, we are planning to carry out the pilot project in some of our regional offices, where it can be tested in real time on real-time data. So we are hoping to get feedback from the counselors. It's supposed to be used on work-focused counseling session and also career counseling sessions. So we would like to get the feedback from our counselors and also by them from our clients. So if we get the good feedback, then the next step would be to find a way to integrate this tool in our IT systems. But yeah, this is decided after we get the results from the first pilot project. And that's it briefly from our side. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed, Ken, for that great presentation of very specific tools. Really good to see how they're working in Estonia. Again, we have about 5 minutes now for questions. Eamon, if I can hand over to you. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, Trin, could you see the model, perhaps OTT, being adapted for use in other countries, do you think? Or is there anything that's very specific to Estonia? I mean, your country is famously one of the most digitally kind of adapted countries in the world, actually. Are there anything particularly that would prevent it being used elsewhere, do you think? Or is it very specific to your delivery model?
I don't think it's not so specific, but you have to test it by your based on your own data, because we have almost like 40 different data points that we use right now. We have reviewed it. We have removed some of the data that we used that doesn't give the effect of the accuracy of this model, this output. So yeah, I think it can be used also in other countries, but you have to test it. Yeah.
Of course. Okay.
And we have also tested the different machine learning models and chosen the best one that work with this type of data.
Thank you. I think I know the answer to this myself, actually, but there's a question, the match score, is it visible only to counsellors or to job seekers and employers as well? I think it's only for the counsellors, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, the decision support tool is right now designed only for the counsellors, and only counsellors can see this results.
Okay. A question about how do you actually keep your staff trained and updated in the use of all these kind of exciting developments, really? Do you have an ongoing training program which make sure they're kept very up to date with these innovations. Yeah.
Yeah, when we talk about this decision support tool that we have implemented for several years already, this is actually integrated in this. We have a work-focused counseling methodology. This is one of, it's already integrated into that. It's one part of the work process, and we have extensive trainings for our counselors. In addition to that, I must admit that this integration or implementation of this new tool is not always smooth. So you really have to teach counselors how to use it. So when we saw that this tool was not used very much as we would have liked, then we carried out very practical trainings in each region based on, we have very practical exercises using this counselors' real-life portfolios. So yeah, you have to have very constant training and guidance using this tool.
Thank you. I think, as we heard again from the first presentation, Trin, these developments are very much seen as an enabler for the wider ecosystem. Do you actually test or share any of your thinking on developing these new systems with stakeholder partners, people who kind of interact with your organisation, or are they mostly for internal use at the moment?
Right now, it's mostly internal use. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned, I think, and I know that you've always been very kind of clear that all the tools for counsellors are support tools for counsellors, and they're there to kind of aid counsellors' decision making. Given how quickly the agenda is moving, could you ever conceive of a situation where perhaps counsellors would be more required to follow the outputs from an AI system at some stage in the future? I know it's a hypothetical question, but maybe not so hypothetical. Can you see it becoming more directive?
Yeah, we actually have been discussing that. Like right now, we categorize our clients in color codes, and we have been talking about that these so-called green job seekers who have let's say very high probability to move into employment soon could be more like independent job seekers and wouldn't need to come to the counselor so often. So this is actually one thing that we have been discussing, and we are discussing it right now. So maybe in the future we will have a more clearer guidance towards that, but we have to still keep in mind that we cannot make these decisions solely based on the outcome. The counselor has to look into the client as well, because as I said, we don't have 100% of the data of each customer. And sometimes when our model says that this person is very likely going to work very soon, then the counselor can see that maybe he or she has very serious health problems right now. So they have to take this into consideration.
Okay, I'm going to jump in, Eamon, because we need to move on to our last presenter. But thank you very much indeed,
thank you,
for your presentation and for answering those questions. We're moving into our final session within the webinar now. We've had the European overview from Willem on the PES network report. We've had two examples from PES in Europe, and now we're going to expand our horizons slightly and hear from the OECD. So the OECD have recently published a study on a new dawn for public employment services, looking at examples of AI use in PES, outside of the EU. So we're delighted that Anne Lollingson has joined us this morning, a labour market economist at the OECD. So Anne, for the next 10 minutes, the floor is yours to highlight some examples beyond Europe. Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning, or is it already afternoon? We have moved to the afternoon. I am very happy indeed to be here and talk about AI use in PES in OECD countries. And indeed, as Ed mentioned, this will use some insights of our paper that was published about a year ago. that really aimed at mapping AI use cases across PES in the OECD countries. But I will also use some insights from our work with individual countries on this topic. You can move to the next slide. Thank you. And this figure here shows those AI use cases that were in production in spring 2024, when we finalized our mapping report. And very broadly speaking, about half of the OECD countries have adopted AI to deliver PES services, and the share is actually quite similar in EU countries and non-EU OECD countries. But of course, as I think it was already mentioned, and also we literally heard, more initiatives have been launched since the data collection of this report. Essentially, almost every country on the right side of this figure have started exploring at least feasibility of AI adoption, and some of them have entered already piloting phases and some potentially also production phases. Just to give examples, for example, Japan is planning to pilot a range of functionalities enhanced by AI, particularly focusing on job matching and career guidance services, and also plans to, or is already cooperating actually with OpenAI. Costa Rica, well, actually there the concept of PES is very new concept altogether. But they have been putting already a lot of effort in having good matching tools, and they are also exploring the possibility to enhance the matching tool by AI. Next slide. So, as I think also Willem in the beginning said, that our two reports cover slightly different tools and also group the AI tools somewhat differently. But regardless of that, actually the broad message is very similar, or the picture is very similar, that AI use cases in PES really concern the very core of PES activities. So job seeker profiling to understand the needs for support, career services, and job matching. And the distribution of use cases across these functions is also not that different in EU and non-EU OECD countries. But maybe again, contrary to what Willem earlier said, so in the OECD non-EU countries, actually matching functionality is perhaps the much more common tool than profiling. So maybe it's also dependent on the business models of those countries or those PES. And in any case, it's likely that these patterns will change, or maybe already have changed, as indeed PES are increasingly exploring the options of additional AI use cases. And yeah, this we see a lot in our work with individual countries. Next slide. Okay, just to showcase a bit how the non-EU OECD countries are using AI in PES services. Here we have a first example from Canada, and actually there the responsibilities for PES and active labor market policies are decentralized, but the state level has manages some initiatives. So, for example, the digital job matching platform, and it's also monitoring and evaluating active labor market policies. And AI has been adopted actually to facilitate both of these functions. So as you see here, in job matching services, AI supports matching job seekers with vacancies and employers with potential candidates. AI helps employers design vacancies, and the AI also detects possible illegalities in vacancy postings to then alert the PES staff. And on the evaluation and monitoring side, actually, Canada has made a lot of progress past years to have a national level database on the public employment service and active labor market policy provision to monitor and evaluate these policies and guide better policy design. And they are indeed conducting really systematic peer-reviewed research on to understand what are the effects of active labor market policies. And also here they are using AI to better understand the subgroup effects of different policies. And this is particularly important to understand the effects on vulnerable groups, marginalized groups, and then have better support in place for them. Next slide. Another example here is Korea. And actually, Korea decided to move towards more data-driven and AI-enhanced PES only some years ago, but has made a lot of progress in this field very quickly. And the approach in Korea really aims at holistic systems for the users. So, for example, there are applications for job matching and career services, but they partly even use parts of the same algorithm. They rely partly on the same data, and use the same concepts. So it would make also more sense for the users. And actually, Korea continues to explore ways to enhance the job matching and career services. And I suspect some of these, what I have listed, are already in production. Taking into account job seekers' aptitude, interest, knowledge, but also integrating generative AI to increase user friendliness of their platform. In addition, some employment centers in Korea provide job seekers an opportunity to conduct virtual mock job interviews to prepare them for the actual job interviews then later on. Well, this is not per se a best developed tool, and it is not included in our mapping report, but I thought it's interesting for the audience today. So this AI-based mock interview system converts the answers of job seekers into text and then assesses the interview characteristics and, for example, finds the most frequently used words, and then, of course, provides feedback to the job seeker how to improve. And this feedback then helps the job seeker to prepare for the face-to-face interviews, but also actually to AI-based job interviews, which are increasingly common in Korea, particularly used by larger companies. And next slide. So the labor authorities in Korea actually envision an even more integrated, automated, personalized, data-driven ecosystem of their digital employment services to provide even better user experience, more value added, and of course they plan to support with additional and further fine-tuned innovative tools using the cutting-edge, state-of-the-art technologies. And this new platform they are developing, Employment 24. This really aims to integrate all the different digital platforms they have and applications they have. So to enable tailored and more comprehensive support to job seekers and employers, but also for the PES staff. So for them, it's about fast administrative processes and more automation. And this fast and very comprehensive development in Korea is happening because digitalization and AI adoption is really thoroughly embedded in the strategic thinking of Korea's employment services. So starting already from the government. So the Korean government aims at the world's best digital government infrastructure, relying on interconnected data and integrated platforms and services, offering high value-added evidence and data-based innovative public services. So, and then in addition, the high-level vision of the digital employment services is provided by the Ministry of Employment and Labour, and then the dedicated and detailed digitalization strategy by the Korean Employment Information Service, which is the agency that supports the whole system with digital developments. But very importantly, of course, the strategies are aligned and support each other in the digitalization and AI journey. Last slide, just to say thank you, and I encourage you to also go and look up our different papers on this topic to get more details on practices, but also, well, recommendations I didn't have time to cover in this presentation now. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Really interesting to have that input from what's going on outside of Europe. We have 10 minutes left in the webinar this morning, so 5 minutes for questions now. There's some in the chat, Eamon, and then we'll just have 5 minutes to wrap up at the end. So, Eamon, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Looking at the kind of Korean approach, and could you share anything briefly with us about their approach to privacy and data security? Presumably, the more elaborate the AI developments become, the more they need to actually de-risk some of these things. So anything particular you picked up on that agenda?
Well, indeed, well, just to say from the OECD perspective, OECD has been driving the concept of trustworthy AI already for years, and actually also the EUA Act is very much also borrowing from the OECD work and concept there. And of course, all these risks and related to data and so on are also concerned for non-EU countries, even if they do not have these kind of regulations like GDPR or indeed EU AI Act. But some, for example, are even using some similar regulations nationally. So quite a few countries actually are using GDPR as a basis to develop their data protection regulation. Now with Korea, when we reviewed the system, and this report was also published almost a year ago, but that was one of our recommendations that they should actually in the strategy think more about data security and also the potential risks of AI. So that's the answer to the direct answer to this question.
Thank you. You mentioned in your very interesting presentation, Anne, that Korea has got a specific strategy looking at digitalization and AI in public employment services. So it's an integrated development approach. Have you seen any other countries that have similarly developed a particular strategy for how they're going to take AI forward in that way, so that it's integral rather than an add-on? Yeah, thank you.
Well, I guess the best example across OECD and EU is here France, and we just heard them present their approach and their ambitions to go even further. Another example of non-EU country, but actually in the PES network is Norway, that has also quite thorough AI strategy in place. More generally, we asked countries about the strategies also in our mapping questionnaire, and the results in total were not that promising yet. So about a quarter of countries across the OECD had actually about a year ago a dedicated digitalization and/or AI strategy in place. So it's something that I think is moving now forward, as the ambition to adopt AI would require indeed to have more strategic thinking, how actually to adopt or what kind of frameworks, for example, have to be put in place, including how to manage risks and protect data.
Yeah, I'm picking up on, I think, something that Wilhelm touched on at the start of our discussion this morning, Anne, really. Thinking of metrics, have you seen any particularly robust evidence that AI does actually produce high quality job matches or high quality profiling? I mean, logic might suggest it should, but have you seen any hard empirical evidence to support that statement or assertion?
Yeah, I have to agree with Wilhelm here that the evidence is still on the softer side. Korea actually was preparing for evaluation of the matching services, but I don't know if they really have now implemented it, and I have not seen the results. But this is one of our key messages we tell about in every presentation we have on AI. Please also evaluate the effects to see if this actually brings value added. It's not always easy, of course, but it's vital to understand if and what kind of routes make sense, what kind of fine tuning is needed. On our side, for example, we helped the Spanish Public Employment Service to evaluate their sort of career recommendation tool, but it was using data analytics, not AI, but regardless. And actually, we saw that this tool produced positive results for the job seekers in terms of employment, yeah, at least in the short term, because we had not very long-term data at that point.
With the kind of growing use of chatbots, I know they're not particularly innovative now, given the way things have moved on, Anne, but do you see a trend for chatbots to be the end of the line for people with queries, or is it still possible for a human to kind of intervene with a slightly confused citizen, possibly?
Well, you can't rely only on chatbot, I suppose, and also, for example, if there has to be a decision in the end, or I think, like, thinking beyond PES, there have been some cases where a company has had a chat tool with a customer, and customer claims that there's this rule where they should be reimbursed, and the person gets reimbursed, but actually there is no rule. The AI made the rule up, or was very agreeable with the customer. So, but you can imagine other scenarios when you talk about job seekers and employers. So it depends, of course, how the chatbots are developing. But it's important to have human eyes on decisions in any case.
Eamon, we're running out of time. Maybe just one final question, and then we'll. Okay. Yeah, and then I have to wrap up.
Thank you, Ed. Our French colleague Mathilde was giving us a view. They've got a strategy for 5 years ahead, and I mean, perhaps in a couple of sentences, have you got any idea where you think AI and PES might be in 5 years' time? Will the robots have taken over? Will we no longer have humans, or is that possibly not going to be the case? Any view about where AI could take us by 2030 in public employment services?
Well, what we see now is that that definitely people are needed in addition to any digitalization. So, for example, we are now working with Belgium and Greece on digital matching tools, potentially using AI to help the most vulnerable people. And when we talk to these people, their very clear message was this minimum income scheme beneficiaries. Their message was, we are so afraid of digitalization. We don't want to have our data anywhere stored, and so on. Like a lot of very hard feedback that at least in their lifetime they would not agree themselves to use digital tools. So that already I think sort of puts down the red line that at least human counselors and so on need to remain, even if AI helps them a lot in their way, making their work more efficient and effective.
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you, Eamon. I have to, I'm afraid time is against us. I don't know, just on, I mean, it's a very important message, I think, as well to wrap up on, and balancing the AI and the human dimension. Willem, just before we finish, I don't know if there was anything that you wanted to add based on the discussions that we've had this morning.
No, I think I would just largely agree, and I would like to echo the words that AI probably for now has the best space being in the background. And there's a lot of value for AI, but supporting counselors and supporting call center agents and supporting, all the people that work really hard and make their lives easier, while not interfering or not being obtrusive or not being annoying or not being in the way. I think that's where AI has value. So we should focus on these things, and that these might not be shiny objects that we can put in press statements, as in we have a new chatbots. No, let's focus on where AI shines, and that is in digesting data and organizing data and summarizing data to make counselors' work easier. And I think in general there is a lot to be said to use AI, use it extensively, monitor the developments, but for now, keep the human element there while using AI to improve their work for now. And I think in the future it's going to change, but for now, I think that's where it should be.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Willem, for that final message. So unfortunately, that is the end of the webinar this morning. But it's not the end of the conversations around this topic. Just firstly, if we can put up the next slide already, the feedback. We like to get the feedback of participants about the event and how we run them, so that we can keep improving in the future. So that's there. But there's also a few things that I wanted to highlight just before we close formally. As I said, this is the end of the webinar. It's not the end of the conversation. These topics are feeding in to the PES Network work program, looking ahead 2025, 2026. They will be further explored in the activities of the PES digitalization working group. And there's also a new working group on developing a common framework for ethical standards of AI. Willem highlighted in his presentation already this morning the importance of ongoing exchanges of experience and learning, and the PES Network is very keen to facilitate that process. There's also some other things. There's the PES that I want to highlight. There's the PES Network LinkedIn group, where this will no doubt be an important topic of online exchanges amongst the community interested in the work of public employment services in Europe, and why not beyond as well, because there's interesting reflections that we heard from Anne from across the world. There will be a future episode of PESPod, the podcast of the PES Network, looking at AI, algorithms, and digital trends. So look out for that. And also, if you haven't heard or subscribed to PESPod yet, there are a whole range of episodes on diverse topics relevant to the work of public employment services. You can see there in the chat, there's links to a number of tools that I'm mentioning. So please do take advantage of those. Go and join the ongoing conversation. I think, having said that, perhaps just on a practical thing, there will be, people have been asking in the chat, there's the recording of this event, the presentations will be made available, and there will be a short flash report, and people will receive links and information about those, along with perhaps the feedback form again in due course. I think that's all the practical information done. So then it just remains for me to thank again very much all of our presenters this morning. Thank you for joining us and sharing these a really interesting range of experiences from a study to national experiences and a broader international perspective. And thank you to the participants for joining and asking your questions. I'm aware that we couldn't answer all of the questions in real time, but we do have a record of those questions. And I think it will be useful to feed those into ongoing reflections about where do people have the most questions, and where can maybe future activities continue to respond to those needs for information. So thank you all of us, and with that I formally conclude this morning's and now this afternoon's webinar on artificial intelligence. So thank you, and have a good remainder of your day.